Today we're talking about deep secrets of UFOs and extraterrestrials concerning other dimensions. And is that the reason why we don't have full disclosure? That perhaps the government doesn't understand it and they don't want to look like they don't understand it? We know from research and experience that the whole reality of otherworldly beings and their craft exists all around us. And it's apparent that they can easily move between dimensions, being visible sometimes and then not visible, and then moving to another part of the sky and appearing again. And also, those who are involved in research and also trying to tune into the ETs understand that consciousness is so important, being able to interact with the higher frequencies. And with such practices as meditation and psychic ability, we can actually interact with the advanced beings. Just in time for this conference, not that it was to do with the conference, but there was a new whistleblower named Jacob Barber. Have you heard his interviews, anyone? So incredible. And so it's just what we wanted to talk about as well, that now a whistleblower is coming out with these experiences, the psychic experiences that he had as he was close to a UFO, and also that some people, with psionics, they can call in a craft. So that is amazing that all this is beginning to come out too. I'm sure some of you might have had those experiences yourself as well, and in connecting with ETs or a craft and being able to interact with it and have profound experiences. On the other hand, the reason also I wanted to call this panel this name is that Chris Mellon had stated he spoke to an insider who is in the know, not someone we know about, not someone that came out. And this anonymous insider had said the truth is indigestible and that the people wouldn't understand. And so that made me angry. I do get angry sometimes because we all know, in all the teachings of the world, the great wisdom teachings have taught us we're here to evolve in material things too, but also evolve in consciousness. That's what human life is about. And why? How can we evolve if the truth is hidden from us and being kept secret by less evolved people? Right? Right, Linda? So now I'm going to ask everyone some questions about this. And let me see. I have start with Paul. And you are very familiar with other dimensions. And would you say that multidimensional reality is sort of the way that we can understand UFOs and extraterrestrials more? And are they all around us? Are they right here? Do we have maybe just the 3D, and it's just a smaller amount of what the reality really is, when reality is so many dimensions?
Thank you for the softball questions. I want to say I'm very happy to be here, and there's kind of an interesting split between our two tables. I think our fine colleagues on the other side are more in government disclosure, and my two colleagues here and I are more in exposure, about bringing light to the matter without the government. I think the U.S. government is a bad faith, corrupt central actor in this, and hopefully we can pry out their secrets, but the train has already left the station, and they're welcome to jump on the back of the caboose if they want. Okay, so that was a hopefully deft deflection from those tough questions. I don't presume to have answers to those weighty things. I'm just interested in making my own questions better. I can't summon UFOs, but I can summon what I believe are interdimensional experiences with the help of DMT. So because I have so many good colleagues doing such good work, I'm taking a bit of a different tack and seeing if I can do an end around to this phenomena through DMT, which may well be not a hallucinatory psychedelic, but a plant medicine technology that allows us to access another dimension, which has a great soundtrack.
God,
and
yeah, he is.
may be a land bridge to the alien phenomena. I think many of us feel that. It's okay. I like musical accompaniment. It's great. It's nice, we tend to think of different phenomena in discrete ways. Ghosts and ESP and DMT experiences and aliens, but there may be a common substrate of consciousness underneath all that. So I'm interested in trying to do a different approach to UFOs by not going head on, but going into what seems to be another dimension to see if there's a connection there. And that's the best answer I have for you, Serena.
Oh, well, that's great. I'm sure some people will have questions about that. Linda, and I'm sure I'm going to ask you. So why do you think that insider said that the truth is indigestible to humans?
Say that again.
The insider that Chris Mellon spoke to, he said there is not disclosure because... Is this on? Oh, yeah, great. The insider who spoke to Chris Mellon, who isn't complete, we don't know who this is, he said that there's no disclosure because it's indigestible to humans and that humans wouldn't understand.
Yes, the word there is indigestible, and I brought with me, sort of hoping that it would open up. I have some papers from an interview that I was doing in 2008, and we're at 2025. And it was from a man who said that he was working in the Groom Lake area in 2008. And I just found this recently, and it's so germane. It's information to me about what he knew about UFOs and ETs. And the very beginning, he said, IBS, interdimensional beings, what people call aliens, we call IBs, or in layman's terms, interdimensional beings. And what we found out and have known about since the early 1970s is that in the simplest terms, other dimensions or planes, as we call them, exist and lay on top of each other almost stacked, as if you had a blanket with another blanket stacked on top of that and another blanket stacked on that. To explain it so you can understand, you can imagine the Earth and our reality as a thin blanket, and all of these other higher dimensions are the blankets laying directly on top of ours. However, we can only see our own blanket. Now the alien beings and the UFOs that we have seen in videos and that many people have captured over the years are in fact what we call jumpers, in that they exist in their relative dimensions but have in fact jumped into ours. We have discovered that most of the time we humans are unable to see them, as they are at a wavelength different from our own that our eyes and ears cannot detect. And from that information I have gathered, I have been briefed on planets, stars, and galaxies within our own plane and universe as we see, and they exist also in these other dimensions that we have detected and know about. And I have been briefed on at least 4 other dimensions that do exist. And the rest of the paper goes into information gain. And these are words from 2008. And so this morning, the questions that you're raising, other people working for our government and other places have been dealing with other dimensional beings all along.
That's fantastic. Amazing in 2008.
It's an amazing universe, isn't it?
Incredible. So imagine how much more they might know now as well since then. Thomas, through these seasons of Skinwalker Ranch, you've been demonstrating that a whole nother world exists, and you've been proving it in a scientific way. What do you think is the most important realization from your experiences that are connected with other dimensions on the ranch?
That's a great question, especially for me. First, I'm grateful to be here and to be, I feel like the new guy on the block. And so it's an honor to be with the other panelists here that have done so much in the area. You know, I came onto the ranch as a complete skeptic, and my intentions coming on had nothing to do with UFOs and paranormal, had everything to do with, you know, developing business relationships with Brandon, the owner. And as such, you get out there and you start witnessing these events. And, you know, I can relate a little bit to that undigestible phrase, because so much of what I've seen out there has been undigestible for me. It's taken a long time for it to sink in, and really what it's caused is for me to accept the fact that there's a lot in this world that we do not understand, and there's a lot going on around us that we may not even be aware of. It's been amazing as we put these high-tech instruments, especially, you know, the infrared cameras, the night vision cameras that we're using, and we'll be doing our experiments, and we see so much in those cameras that you can't see with the naked eye. We've seen some UAPs that are showing up clearly in the night vision goggles, and we'll watch them even follow us around, but you can't see them with the naked eye. So there's definitely a lot going on around us that we're not capable of being able to see with our human eyes.
Other dimensional.
Yes, absolutely. Or I that's how I interpret it. Yes.
And we can probably see some more in the next season as well, because they've got a whole other season now that we can start watching soon, right?
Yeah, we'll have I think it'll start airing this spring.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was just going to say, everyone, if you wrote questions on the paper, on the little cards, please give that to Robert Perala. He's there at the back, and he'll pass them to me. So, yeah, some people have some, Robert, that they have some they're holding. Thank you. Next, for Danny. So you meet with, government and military whistleblowers and all those keeping the cover up as well. And so what do you think is the main reason that we don't have disclosure? And is anything still holding it back in a big way? Or do you think it's going to be coming this year?
I think it's going to be coming in the next couple of years, just because of the political realities. The Trump administration and all their people realize that the Democratic Party structure is planning to take over the House and Senate, or one of them at least, in 2 years. And so they know that they've got this limited period of time within which to decide how they're going to capture, the Trump administration is going to capture and take advantage of this issue. And so the bottom line is, I think it'll happen in the next couple of years. The people that I'm talking to that talk about why they won't reveal all this is because the people who are in the military and in the intelligence communities are part of a structure, a nation-state oriented, limited structure, and they work on behalf of a very elite group of corporate owners that are questing to get control of the natural resources on the planet, to be wealthy and powerful. And they're concerned that the revelation of this information is going to unseat them, to be very specific. And the people in the military, and even to some extent law enforcement, et cetera, they think they're the protectors of that order. And so that it's antithetical to their whole way of life to unseat those people in positions of power, because their positions are all completely derivative of that elite, and so they won't do it. And so I agree that we have to do it ourselves, reaching out to the people, establishing telepathic communication with them, calling them in, et cetera. That's why I'm very concerned about people working on behalf of the aerospace corporations, trying to lure them in using psychic abilities, and then capture them and try to steal their technology so they can make patents on weapons. So I think that's the reason they're refusing to really come clean on this. And so I very much agree that we have to do this ourselves. I'm working with others, I guess, at this table to extract what we can to try to get them to give us whatever information they can. Some of the insiders who are willing to do that, but I don't think we can rely upon that exclusively. We have to do the job ourselves. So that's what I believe.
Yes, and I just want everyone to know also, I always try to get the actual whistleblowers to come, and Danny helps to do that. But I think they have to be careful where they speak, don't they? They're just keeping it for the government only for now.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
They're because they're threatened. I mean, they're threatened with prosecution, criminal indictments, imprisonment, and worse. That there are people in the program who have signed an agreement that if they breach their security, they can be immediately terminated, not just work-wise, but killed. That's the kind of tight security that's at the very depths of this thing. And I've talked to people who know that they've signed those kind of agreements, and can't tell us stuff. They were terrified that stuff that I had found out, the bad guys would think that they're the ones that told me.
Oh.
So they were terrified that they were going to get killed, and wanted me to take steps to make sure that everybody knew that they weren't the source of this. That's how serious this is.
So that still is happening. We like to think that's not happening anymore.
No. That's operational right now. That's operational right now. Yeah.
Thank you. Steve Bassett, so do you think that a lot of the people in the government, they don't fully understand it, all the different layers, as Linda was saying, and that's why they don't want to talk about it?
There's a lot of people in the government that don't understand a lot of things, actually. And by the way, before I get started here, I just want to let you know that with respect to the UAP issue and ET issue, train leaving the station is my metaphor. I trademarked that in 2004.
Easy, Bassett.
Interesting. Look, the best way I can answer that question is that the number of people within our, quote, government, which means most of the military intelligence complex, which is a huge entity involving tens of thousands of people, also in the Congress, going back all the way into the 50s, the number of people that knew, whether they were involved in any way at all or not, that in fact, oh yeah, we have visitors, it would probably astound you. Right? If the historians could somehow do the research and everything and say, oh yeah, it's some huge number. I'm pretty sure of this. So you might say, well, how in the hell then are we still questioning this or still having to pass legislation and so forth? And the reason is actually pretty simple, because what they knew in their personal space is the most profound knowing that the human race has ever actually dealt with, without getting into ancient times, modern times, that we're not alone, and that there's advanced entities with technology and so forth engaging us deliberately. It's the most profound information. And the revealing of that will be the most significant event in human history. And so you can, and it is connected to, not only just in time, but also in a more formal way, with the other dilemma that we have faced since I was born, which is the nuclear arms race and mutual assured destruction, and living under that cloud our entire lives. It is connected. And so it was the truth of their presence was attached to that very real threat as a national security matter. And so those that knew, if they wanted to get on their high horse and start doing their thing, they could technically be creating the potential for a nuclear war, which is just a terrible thing to have on your resume when you go looking for another job. See, what did you do back in do that? Well, actually, I launched a nuclear war, but you know, I still had skills. I'd like to go to work for you. In other words, the reasons that have kept this under control are not trivial, incredibly significant. So everybody that has come forward, going all the way back to the beginning, whether it's J. Allen Hynek, right, or some of the witnesses we have now, and many others that are still around that want to testify, every single one of them have had to go against that dilemma, okay? Do I keep silent or do I risk whatever could come from that? And every one of them has had to make that decision, including me, including Danny, and so forth. And I think all of us have concluded that the risk of nuclear war is greater if we do not get this truth to the world, right? In other words, if we don't get this truth to the world, the likelihood of nuclear war is much greater, and we could be wrong. And when you do these kinds of things, you don't know the future. You have to look inside yourself and say, what is the right thing to do? And if you believe that this truth must get out because we're heading for nuclear war, then that's what you do, and you hope that you're right. And so that's about the best answer I can give to you about who knows what.
Thank you. That's fascinating. And I know Steve will be going back. Yeah, I'll be going back to Washington to keep pushing for disclosure. Really, so he mostly is based there now. Robert Parala, would you bring me the questions? Next.
Oh, okay,
yeah, I know. Yeah. Next, Dan Harary. You are running the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, and it was originally because of your own experience, and it was an amazing UFO experience. Would you tell us a little bit about that? And then I know you're going to tell the whole story in your lecture later today.
That's right. That's right. It's really an honor for me to be up here with these icons of disclosure sitting next to me, these two characters. Everything I know about disclosure is from Mo, Larry, and Curly, down at the end, Paul Hynek. These guys have actually become my friends the last few years. It's just amazing to me. The reason I'm here right now is because of something remarkable that happened to me in March 1970. I was 13 years old. I was in my father's car. He drove me home one day from school in the afternoon. It was about 3 o'clock, suburban New Jersey, near Asbury Park. Yay, Bruce Springsteen, who I used to know. Anyway, my dad's driving me home from school. I'm in his car. As we're driving down the street, above my father's car, through the windshield, I saw a huge silver V, like Victor, craft, hovering above my father's car. And it was just hovering above the car. So I looked through the windshield. I go, Dad, there's a UFO. Dad, there's a UFO. Stop the car. Dad, stop the car. There's a UFO. We stop the car. We get out. We stand in front of the car. I'm 13. Dad, look, it's Star Trek. It's Star Trek. I'm jumping up and down. I couldn't be more excited, right? This Pyramid of Egypt hovering above my father's car, a couple 100 feet. My father looked at this like, he's looking at his watch, he's looking at his shoes, he's looking at the car. I really should get the car washed. No interest. My father had no interest in this unbelievable thing that we were seeing together. And that's the whole crux of the story in a minute. So he's just nothing. He looked like it was like a head of lettuce in the supermarket. He had no expression on his face. I couldn't believe it. After a couple of minutes, he looks at me and goes, come on, kid, let's go home. We get in the car, we drive home, and this craft then begins to follow us again. It's huge, silver, shiny, no noise, no propeller, no smoke, nothing. It just follows the car, and then it goes off into the distance. I run into the kitchen. This is 1970, rotary phone. I call the Asbury Park Press newspaper. Hi, my name is Danny. I just saw a UFO with my dad. The lady goes, Sonny, we're getting hundreds of phone calls right now. I gotta go. She hung up on me. No story ever ran in the paper. I forgot that happened for 47 years. Okay? 47 years. What happened 47 years later? My father died. My father died in Florida. He had a bad death. He had Alzheimer's. It was awful. He died 3 days later. I went to Junior's Deli near UCLA to get a pastrami sandwich and to mourn my father. And that's the reason I went, to get a pastrami sandwich, think about my dad. I'm sitting at the table. I order the sandwich, and as God is my witness, this is a true story. I'm just sitting there thinking about Dad. A beam of energy from above hit me in the head like a fist with knuckles, like this, bang, hard in my head, bang. And then through my eyes and through my brain, projected in front of me, 8 to 10 inches projected, 3D color hologram home movie with audio, projected. It's right here, like I'm looking at you, in the air, 3D color hologram. of the 1970 sighting I had with my father. It played. It played in the air. No, it was like, and it was square, like a screen, in the air. I was shaking, my heart's beating. I see the car. Now, this is not a memory or like a flashback. It was a movie. My joke is God was the cameraman behind the car. So I saw the car, me, my dad, and the V. I saw the whole thing in the frame. I was in the movie. And I see, Dad, it's Star Trek. I'm jumping up and I'm watching this. This time, you guys, my dad looked down at me. He winked at me. My dad winked at me and said, come on, kid, let's go home. Okay? So it was like 45 seconds that this played. Then it pixelated and it vanished. Now I'm shaking. Then in my right ear, I'm a little bit clairaudient. I've had a few times in my life, maybe 10 times I've heard things. I heard, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen. You need a pen, you need a pen. I asked the waiter for a pen. I put it in my hand. There's a paper placemat on the deli table. My hand did automatic writing. My hand wrote the following 3 things. Write a book about benevolent aliens. Lead character's father knew about UFOs. Then I wrote capital A, capital T, capital C. My hand stopped moving. So I'm holding this paper. I'm shaking, you guys. What the hell is happening? And after a few minutes, it came to me. After they came. This is my book. This book was given to me at a deli. It was given to me as a digital download, I think, from my father from heaven. This is 3 days after my father died. Now, the other half of the story, which I'm going to do tonight, who was my father? Very quickly, my father worked for the Army for 45 years, top secret. My father invented military drones. How about that? No one knew that until after he died, including my mother. And I have proof of this, which I'll do in my lecture tonight, 6 o'clock, Century D. And so I think what happened was, I think it was my dad from heaven, when I'm in the deli, 3 days later, I think he said, Danny, remember that UFO we saw in 1970? I couldn't tell you what that was because of my NDAs. I'm dead now. my NDAs have ended, right, Danny? Maybe that's a way, people after they're dead. And Danny, remember that UFO? I knew what that was. I swear to you, in my heart, I know that my father knew what that UFO was.
That's wonderful.
Who was in it?
And they were reminding you, too, that you're meant to be doing the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance.
I'll get to that. That's the other part of the story.
Serena, who was in that silver V?
Yes.
Who was in that silver V? Did
Linda,
you
know, this download movie, it was 47 years later. When I told Steve Bassett the story the first time, he said, Dan, that sounds like it was an ET download, right? But I think it was my dad from heaven who sent me this. So I don't know who was in the V, but whoever was in the V, I think perhaps the V was a military man-made drone using reverse engineered technology that my father was involved with. That's what I think today.
I've had a bit of a chance to digest the undigestible question you asked before. And I'd like to circle back to that and also point out, I mentioned before that the other table is more disclosure, we're more exposure. But Serena, in a masterstroke, has also organized our table where Thomas, who's the expert on what may be ground zero at Skinwalker Ranch, and then Linda, one of the few people, along with Paola Harris, who knows that the UFO phenomena is really international and actually does research around the world. And then I'm your designated off-world DMT driver. The undigestible question is fascinating because I was introduced to DMT because a friend of mine said, where did your father think UFOs came from? And he was a scientist. He was very comfortable saying there's a phenomena. What it is, where, when, who, it's a little bit more difficult. And my friend said, you should read this book. And it turned to be about DMT. And my first experience, I asked the entities that I saw, are you related to UFOs and aliens? And they said, we can't explain in a way that you would understand. And I thought, well, yeah, if there is a land bridge between UFOs and DMT and other things, that probably is beyond my French major level of understanding. And that resonates with what Chris said and what many others have said, that we can't give you all this information, you're not ready for it, you can't understand it. I mean, how do you explain a Chevrolet transmission to an ant? Right? You can see something, but we don't even have the vocabulary to describe it, much less the mental bandwidth to understand it. So to go back to your most recent question, how do we handle this? How do we handle a singularity, an event horizon of such magnitude and importance that we just don't even understand what it is, much less what to do with it? You know, I think the national security apparatus is very scared that the fabric of national security will be ripped asunder with these types of disclosures. And we hear about catastrophic disclosure, which is not necessarily catastrophic for the world, but as Danny says, for the current power structure. It's a catastrophe for them. So Steve made a very good point about how this could help mitigate the looming threat of nuclear war or other, you know, existential threat technologies. So I think we're doing a good job at conferences like this, and it's about exposure, getting other people to understand there is something happening. And if we prime the pump more with more and more people understanding there's something happening, even if we don't know the answers, I think that's a really fertile substrate for us to help prepare the world that something is happening. So when it does happen, it's not so much of a gobsmack.
Fantastic. Thank you. Linda, what are you going to do when the government discloses? We really want to know.
I'm going to go explore other dimensions. I'm convinced that this is a multi-dimensional layered process, and today, and reading this 2008 from somebody who was working for the government about other dimensions, in just the last year or so, I've been introduced also by people who are working in certain agency work, that the other dimensional aspect of everything relates to how the advanced technologies move through light years in seconds. And this is an area that I think you could have 10 physicists here explaining what they do and what they understand, and we would not grasp it because we are not at all educated to even think in terms of what is the dimension that my hand is going through that is not the third that we're in, but is another dimension. And that's where the non-humans interact all the time. So I'm going to go explore other dimensions. I'll report back the best I can.
Yes.
Get back to us.
Yeah, we need you on these panels. We need you at Conscious Life Expo. At Conscious Life Expo, of course, we'll keep having panels, and we'll keep welcoming more and more people to learn more and more, because when there's disclosure, that's the beginning of disclosing more information, not the end. So we'll be doing that. Thomas, what will you do when the government disclosure happens? What will happen at Skinwalker Ranch?
Well, I think you just echoed exactly my thoughts, is that it's really the beginning. You're opening the door, but that's where the real, I guess, work, for a better, lack of a better word, starts. It will be interesting to see what the disclosure brings with it. What kind of information do we receive? What is there? And sifting through that and trying to make sense of what it all is. And then that's where the true journey starts, in trying to use that to advance us and our understanding of the world around us. And then there'll be I guess I come from the other side of the aisle, where I came on as truly a skeptic, and my brain's so analytical that I have to see the science of it to be able to accept it as real. I'm not an easy believer. And so I know that there are many out there just like me. And so this group right here is very open-minded, and we'll be able to accept and digest that very easy. But there'll be a lot of the society out there that's more like me, and there's going to be a lot of work to help them understand it's real and to bring it forward in a way that they can start to accept it as reality. And the truth is we've seen this in our research, is that those people tend to fight very, very hard against it because it's scary. You know, it's change, and it scares them. Even some of the experiences that we've had when we share them with people that are not ready for it, they get angry, and they sometimes get violent. And so it's hard for some people to accept change. So there'll be a lot of work to do when disclosure comes forward, both on the science side and as well as in the communication side, helping communicate it out there to those that are not ready to receive it.
Yeah, thank you. Danny, what will you do next once you have managed to achieve government disclosure?
Retire.
Well, there's a number of other things that still need to be disclosed, you know, in addition to this, even though this is kind of an overarching one. But more specifically, there's going to be a panel that's going to be established by the United States Congress. It's a board of review of all of the information, and there are going to be 9 people assigned to it from various walks of life. Our new Paradigm Institute has been designated in the statute, Senate Bill 2226, to actually participate in nominating people to that board. And the board is going to be designing a UFO disclosure plan, pursuant to which they're going to be attempting to address the various geopolitical, economic, technological, scientific information that's going to be able to be obtained from the UFO people and have it integrated into our world human culture. Now, the challenge is going to be that there's going to be an effort to appoint people to that board who are going to be trying with all their might to maintain what they refer to as the elements of power that are presently in charge. Our job as the people is to have amendments made to our structures that remove those people from positions of power and substitute for them people who have the public interest genuinely in mind. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be participating, hopefully, in that process of not only nominating people to that, but serving as one of the counsel on this. This is what the New Paradigm Institute is for, to help facilitate the new paradigm, the new human worldview that we're going to have to really evolve to understand what the profound answers are to these questions that we've had philosophically, theologically, for eons. This is one of the most extraordinary moments in all history of our human family, and it's going to take a lot of work. And I'm hopefully going to be privileged to be participating in that process, as it turns out.
And that's so incredible. And will those panels be televised, you think, for the people to learn?
Well, it's interesting that one of the things they're going to have to do is to figure out their own protocols, figure out, you know, what kind of meetings they're going to have, what kind of staff they're going to have, what kind of budget they're going to have. One of my major objectives is to keep them from being dominated by people that are in the military and intelligence community and in the private business corporations. That's going to be the inclination under the statute. The statute that's been passed by the United States Senate. It's a 64-page bill laying this out in some detail. That Stephen and I and others here at the table are aware of that particular bill. That's the consensus that's been come to by the reigning powers right now, and that's the protocol that they're planning to follow. And so that our job is to get as many people on that board as are representing the genuine public interest. That's our job as people. That's why the New Paradigm Institute is in operation. That's why we want people to participate in going to the newparadigminstitute.org and being part of the Citizens for Disclosure, so that we can take control of that process rather than leaving it in the hands of the elite right now. That's what the New Paradigm Institute has been set up for.
It'll be such a positive change. Steve, what will you do when disclosure happens?
What will I do? Well, first, you say after disclosure.
Yes.
Well, as I've been pointing out for 20-some years ad nauseum, as an activist, I said we need a prize, we need a goal. What's that goal? What has to happen? What is going to lift the spell that has been put on virtually the entire world for all these years? And it is the confirmation from the heads of state. That confirmation triggers a lot of things. And so for the last 77 years, we've had lots of disclosure, small d. And after that confirmation comes from every head of state ultimately, there's going to be tons of more small d disclosure going on into the indefinite future. But in the middle is the disclosure event, the confirmation event. And that, right now, is more likely than not to come from the President of the United States, not from China, not from Russia, though there's rumors that they may take an action. So I'm going to assume that's going to happen. Now, as it happens, my office is 2 blocks from the White House, has been for about 6 years. And so if the current President of the United States discloses, meaning however it happens, the words come out of this gentleman's mouth that, oh, yes, we're not alone. I've made some calls, I've checked, whatever. I'm going to, I'm going to,
It's beautiful.
I'm actually, that's not an exaggeration. That could happen, okay? This is a president unlike any other, and so you have to expand your spectrum of possibilities. I'm going to take the elevator down from the 9th floor. I'm going to walk out of the press club. I'm going to walk on over to the White House. I'm going to get in front of the, the big fence, and I'm going to do a dance. I'm just going to be doing a little dance, right? Right? Think Elaine Bennis and Seinfeld. It's going to be that kind of dance. And then I'm going to go back to my office and start to participate in the post-disclosure world. All right. And let's just say that that's going to be fun. And everybody is invited. There's nobody that can't not do that. Not everybody will. But there's plenty of people now, because of the previous 77 years of small d disclosure, that kind of have some ideas. There's already organizations being formed to deal with the post-disclosure world. That's what Soul Foundation is. That's what the UAP Disclosure Fund is. That's what the New Paradigm Institute is. I can go on. There are others. They've already figured it out. It's coming. Let's get together.
HDA.
And Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, absolutely. And so that we're getting ready to do this. And Danny thinks it's 2 years out. Danny's actually older than me. 2 years is a long time, okay? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Right? And I would like to get it done before that. And so I have a very good reason to believe that it may be within 60 days, or approximately by the end of March. It's not. Don't think the date is important. It is basically based on what I have seen. A whole bunch of stuff back in D.C. Because that's all I do is I'm trying to track it all, right? So if you pick up a thing here and a thing there and a thing there, and you're going, but if you start to look at the whole package, and this is unusual, it was made known through the usual Hollywood press that Mr. Spielberg, a fine gentleman, has actually had a movie planned for 2026, and it's a UFO movie. That's what they said. It's a UFO movie, 2026, and I'm going, interesting. You don't. When you're a big shot, you don't predict a movie 2 years out unless you're thinking that is going to be a really big movie, right? It's going to be huge. So, very excited, very excited. And then we forgot about it, moved on. Occasionally something was mentioned, no big deal. And as they often do, they indicated a quote, working title, right? It's just one of those things because it's 2 years out. It's called The Disc. It's going to be The Disc.
Dish.
But the Dish, yeah. But working title. So I just completely forgot about it. But a lot has happened. A lot more. And then about 7 days ago, through one of the Hollywood thingies, one of the press thingies, it was revealed that some casting is underway, and they've settled on a title for the giant Spielberg movie of 2026. And the title of this movie is Disclosure.
Oh.
Hello. All right. So all I can say is that watch for a couple of things to happen in the next about 7 or 8 days. Watch for an announcement from Nancy Mace. Watch for an announcement from Anna Paulina Luna. All right? Go online, if you can, and it's easy, and YouTube, and find a very recent podcast by Donald Trump Jr., who has a podcast and 1 million followers, so it's a really good podcast, and it's very strong. And watch the interview that he does with Ross Coulthart and Luis Elizondo about all of this for an hour and a half, 3 days before the inauguration. And then decide, is Steve right or is Danny right? Is it 60 days out or is it 2 years out? So we'll see, right? Either way, we all win.
Yeah. Dan Harary, what will you be doing?
I have a very simple answer. I can't follow these guys. My mother is 90 years old, Brooklyn Jewish little old mama, lives in New Jersey by herself. Every Sunday evening, I call my mom to see how she's doing. For the last 20 years, every Sunday night, I've been telling my mother that UFOs and extraterrestrials are real. And for the last 20 years, every Sunday, my mother says to me, the day after disclosure, I'm going to go, Mom, I told you so. Okay, you were right. My mother will outlive everyone in this room and the oldest oak tree in Marin County. I mean, my mother's redwood tree. Anyway, that's what I will call my mother.
Well, here's another great question from the audience. And please, why don't everyone just chime in what you think? It doesn't have to be in a particular order. How can we fact check and also identify a UAP as opposed to our own technology? If you see one, how would you know?
I know, but it's...
I used to think it was that that ours had lights and theirs didn't, but that's not it. There's been a lot of craft with lights that you might think are ours that ETs have been seen on or people have been in. So that's not the way.
You're going to have to get on board, really, because you can't tell from the outside now because of them mimicking the technology. So you have to get inside and be with the beings that are there, and to determine that they are either extra-dimensional or extraterrestrial, that they're not, they don't have American military name tags on,
Yeah.
Because that's the key to this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you have to do now.
I know that the TR3B, it's a triangle and it has lights. It has one in the middle and one in each corner. And I didn't see that one, but I know that is something that's ours, of course, with extraterrestrial technology. And there's a lot of, pyramid, that triangular craft that are not ours. So, and you can't even say is the bigger one UFO, because I know that some of the secret planes, the secret craft that a military have, are bigger ones as well. So, and I also saw an SR-75 in early 90s. And it was coming down, it was being tested by radar because I lived in Culver City, and there's a radar testing station at the top of the hill there, and they used to fly planes quite low, and I thought a rocket was crashing. That plane, it was, and I have talked about it to Michael Schratt, who's a UFO and military aircraft historian, and I'm on his list of things, of reports. But if you see something like this, it's a long, it looks like a rocket, and then at the back there's the big wings, and there's points on the wings, and there's little fins at the front. But it was so low over my son's school when I came to pick him up, and people were looking, but they didn't seem to be paying as much notice as me. And they were thinking, well, what do you think that was, you know? But I knew it wasn't a UFO, it was ours, and I haven't seen them since, and I haven't heard of them since. Does anyone know about those, SR-75? Nobody? But that was really an interesting thing. But yeah, it's really hard. Does anyone else want to comment on the difference when you're looking in the sky?
Well, I could say this. The very fact that we've reached a point where people be outside and something is out there and up there, very extraordinary, and they're not sure whether it's ours or theirs. The very fact that we've gotten to that point means, okay, let's get this done, right? Let's confirm that it could be theirs, and then eventually explain to the American people which ones are theirs and which ones are ours, so we're all in on this. That to me is what the most important take regarding that point.
It's important to point out that, remember, that Stephen Greer has been telling us this for the last 10 years. As you know, I was legal counsel for the Disclosure Project for 20 years. But when I agreed to represent Lou Elizondo, I was asked not to be that anymore. But Stephen has been telling people for years that we have succeeded far beyond what most of us had thought in replicating some of the technology and mimicking their technology. He has gone extra distance in asserting that they're engaged in a plan to stage, as you all know, a false flag attack using these man-made vehicles and try to blame it on them. On the ETs, so that the national security state can basically roll into place the continuity of government plans that they have in place. That Stephen and I have disagreed about that publicly, but I want to make clear that you cannot place that beyond the capability of the national security state. National security state people are perfectly capable of doing something like that. I don't believe they're actually planning to do that right now, but I know that they probably have war-gamed the scenario, which ought to be chilling enough. But that this whole issue of the present inability to distinguish the ET vehicles from our man-made vehicles is you say you can have a response saying that tells you a lot about the state of consciousness of our people now. But the fact of the matter is, this is a very serious problem that we've got, given the lack of trustworthiness of the national security state people who have done this stuff. And that's what's motivating a lot of the whistleblowers that you've seen, that Jake Barber and Fred Baker and Don Paul Bales now have been interviewed by Ross Coulthart, and this is exactly what they're saying, that there is an element inside the national security state apparatus that is so dedicated to maintaining control on behalf of the elite power structure, primarily corporate power structure on our planet right now, that they're dangerous. And that they're not only engaging in completely unconstitutional activity of concealing the information and lying actively to Congress, but that they're capable of these kind of extraordinarily dangerous activities. And so as you know, I've been in this peculiar situation of representing at one and the same time both Lou Elizondo and Stephen Greer in the Disclosure Project. So I've been trying to maintain the tension there, but I think that both of them are devoted to trying to get disclosure of what it is that we do know about the national security state and what they know, and that I want everybody to kind of support trying to get this done so that we can find out which aspect of both of their respective positions is true, so that we can understand this as a private citizen.
I'd like to add one more thing. it is pretty much understood that it's unlikely that the United States is the only nation that has gotten crash vehicles.
Yeah.
It's assumed that the other two major nations that have this ability would be China and Russia. And so if in fact they have also re-engineered this tech and created something like it with some capabilities, that tech, those vehicles that we are able to make ourselves are absolute first strike weapons. Understand how they move. In other words, you've got a nuke, you want to strike first, whoop, boom, got it. And first strike is one of the most dangerous aspects of the nuclear era, okay? Everybody is about, if you got how to stop a first strike. And so to the extent that that becomes more possible, the paranoia grows, the fear, the likelihood of making a mistake. And that's been that way maybe for some time, which means that the risk of nuclear war is probably even greater than we know. And so we've got to resolve this, right? It's not just about secrets and stuff and making corporate profits. It's about literally the fate of our world. That's how big it is, and you can't say it enough. Hopefully they'll, and I think people on the Hill are getting this. I think there are people on the Hill that understand this now, and they are very serious about getting this done. And you're seeing that, and it's unprecedented compared to the last 70 years.
I would just point out one more thing, is that possibly one of the fears that people in the legacy group have is that as the United States national security state uses its threat of nuclear war to push the boundaries, for example, of the expansion of NATO and other things that is generating the response on the part of Putin, that threat of our initiating a first strike nuclear war is what might trigger the intervention of the extraterrestrial beings. And demonstrate that they can shut all of those things off, as they have shown. And that is what they view as catastrophic disclosure, because that would in and of itself disclose the fact that they're here and that they have this capability, and then we would be into the post-disclosure age before the national security state people can get control over it. That's the dynamic that's actually going on right now. And so it's important to remember the doomsday clock people have not only set the clock, the doomsday clock of total thermonuclear destruction of the planet, even during the Cuban Missile Crisis, was set at 2 minutes before midnight. They moved it up farther and closer to midnight. People don't know about that. They've now moved it to 89 seconds before midnight.
Well, there's several reasons for that, but yeah.
Yeah.
And catastrophic disclosure was worth pointing out that, well, I do not believe the ETs would intervene. My vote goes another direction. I don't think they intervene. However, if we forced their hand and they did have to intervene to stop all that stuff, that's disclosure, but it's catastrophic because it's utterly emasculating all the nations, Russia, China, us, you know? And so it's a bad PR move. Right? If we disclose and that's good. But if they have to intervene to save us, all these governments are utterly, it's just, they're just sitting there. And
is it strictly the purview of the U.S. government and other governments to decide about disclosure? I mean, there are the ETs or IBs involved as well. And if they are controlling things or have vastly superior technology, they may not just be a passive participant in this process. And if based on reports that we have that they and others feel the truth is indigestible, then maybe they're going to wait till we can digest it more, and it's not Trump or somebody else at the White House who's making the call.
Well, if the ETs are preventing heads of state or something from doing this, that's a whole new ballgame. I don't know what to say about that. But I happen to believe that our visitor friends are playing a very significant role in the disclosure process. They've done all kinds of things to keep things moving along, right? So that's good. right? They're helping us. I think this huge UFO flap that we've gone through for months now, where they're flying all over all the military bases like crazy, is part of that. But that's not the same thing as we launch a nuclear war and they come down and stop all the weapons, right? Basically taking over in a way. It doesn't have to be that way.
I've got another question I want to change
Yeah,
to another
fine,
thing. Because there's so many questions here. They're great, too. They're fantastic
good question, yeah.
questions. And that was a great one. So I think this is a really good one for Linda, because there's a question here. Is there evidence for a human-alien hybrid program? What evidence is there that that's still going on?
Wow.
Different
To
question.
me, the key word is evidence. And evidence to me would be being able to go into an underground base where it exists and see and be able to communicate. And I don't think any of us here in this room have done that. So there isn't hard evidence, but there's definitely what would be a tremendous amount of various facets that I receive in Earth files from people. One man said that he had tried to call me on a cell phone from a position that was in the Midwest of the United States, but he was working for a government agency secretly. And he let me know that within a certain period of time after calling me on a cell phone and then our deciding that it was content having to do with exactly this question, that he said, this is not going to be safe, and I will figure out a way to contact you, and hung up. And then I get later on in the day that his entire cell phone was melted, and that was the disconnect, and that the government of the United States has the ability to melt cell phones from the inside out, depending upon who it is and what their cell phone is. And everything about the question of other life in this universe that has been interacting with this planet and this solar system longer than Homo sapien is alive is the perspective that I have.
Oh, that's interesting. And
Thank you.
that I think that's in mostly in your book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2. Yeah,
Earth Files, at Earth Files.
Yeah, a lot if you go on the website and you join Earth Files. There's so much about it. There's a question for Thomas. Is there time anomalies in Skinwalker Ranch? Like finding things in the wrong place, or having missing time, or like feeling you're on another time?
Yeah, actually, time is one of our key focuses out there. We have so many time anomalies that it's hard to even keep track of them, and these are documented. We've done multiple experiments where we are having differences of time, even from one side of the ranch to the other. Sometimes in as little as a space of 100 feet, we're having very high precision clocks that are being thrown off. You know, it's interesting. We did the drone experiment last year. They practiced that experiment off the ranch the day before, and it flew flawlessly. And we had divided it up and did half at the Triangle and half over in the East Canyon. And the way that they sync their software up and they sync it all together, they should take off within milliseconds of each other. And what ended up happening is that from one side to the other, we had a 7-second delay, which is significant to us because we've seen that same 7 seconds difference show up multiple times across the ranch. We had one incident 2 years ago. We had a crew that was over doing some restoration work on Homestead 2. They were listening to Spotify or something on digital, and we have this on camera. We have one of our surveillance cameras, and the music starts speeding up and then slowing down and then speeding up, and it coincided with some of the other instruments that we had there, some RF meters, and I can't remember if the magnetometer registers some, but we have a multi-platform sensor box there at Homestead too. And so with that footage of the music speeding up and slow, it was really eerie to hear it, like the old records that you could really speed up. And but it's digital, right? So this isn't analog music; it's digital. And then you start pairing that up with the other data that we're getting on the other sensors, and it's really telling. So time, a lot of the things that we're seeing, even GPS. So one of the big tells is that we're having all kinds of GPS anomalies. Our GPS, and these are robust, hardened sensors. Some of them are showing us diving down miles below the Earth's surface, or taking the GPS points will suddenly go up in the air. Well, GPS is just a very highly sensitive clock. It's judging the time between the satellite and the Earth's position. So if we're going below Earth, that's telling it took longer for it to get back to the sensor, or if we're up in the air, it indicates that there's an anomaly there that's speeding it up. And so time is one of the key things, and every time we're looking at one of our experiments, I would say probably 90% of the time we're able to trace it back, and a time anomaly, speeding it up or slowing it down, would actually explain what it is that we're seeing.
Oh, thank you. It's so interesting watching that show. Yeah, I was thinking about Montauk, if anyone's ever read about Montauk projects and how they had time anomalies also, and there still are up there in that area. For everyone, is there any indication of why the interdimensional beings, or the extraterrestrials for that matter, would want to contact us? What are they trying to do? Are they trying to contact us, and why?
Can I jump in on that one?
Yes.
Okay. In 2008, I spent a 3-day weekend at the Bassett Ranch. Who knows the Bassett Ranch? James Gilliland? I'm a member of MUFON Southern California. James Gilliland gave us a talk, and he said, 4th of July weekend, 2008, I'm having a 3-day event on my property and sky watching. So I went with a girlfriend I had at the time, and we spent 3 days on the property. It's at the base of Mount Adams. Mount Adams is one mountain down from Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier, Kenneth Arnold, 1947. So during the afternoons, they had a big white tent on the property, and they had lectures and films and seminars and things. David Childress, I believe, was there. William Henry was there. I think Nick Pope was there. And they spoke about everything that we all love during the daytime. At night, they made a bonfire on the property, and people were dancing and singing with guitars around the bonfire, and we would sky watch. So the first night was Friday, looking up at the sky for hours and hours and hours. Absolutely nothing happened. Saturday day, lectures, film, seminars, bonfire, looking up at the sky Saturday, hours and hours, nothing. And your neck really hurts after about 6 hours looking up. Okay, the last day was the Sunday. Sunday afternoon, the white tent, lectures, film, seminars, bonfire, people dancing, looking up at the sky, Sunday night. So my girlfriend and I looking up at the sky for about an hour and a half, about 90 minutes, nothing's happening. I grabbed the car keys out of my hand, and I said, Barbara, if we leave right now, we can beat the traffic. There's 200 cars there. The second I said that, a huge black craft came from behind us, from the trees behind us, hovered over us. There's 200 people on the ground around this bonfire. It hovered, it blocked out the sky. I looked up, I said out loud, what the hell is that thing? And then underneath this, a clear glass crystal bulb lit up. And it was bright emerald green light, like emerald green from The Wizard of Oz. Beautiful emerald green color in the bulb. And I'm looking up. And then that light bathed all of us on the ground. Like in the X-Files when Mulder and Scully, they're looking, and they're in the white. I'm in the green, right? We're in green, and the light was like Morse code. It was like light, 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 light. I'm getting the following messages from the light, and it wasn't in my ears or my brain, in my heart. In my heart, I'm getting, hello, we're here. We know you've been waiting. We got stuck at Walmart down the street. We were in a long line, but we're here. We love you. We love you. We know you've been wanting to see us. We love mankind. Be kind to one another. Be kind to planet Earth. We were in the neighborhood. We just wanted to say hello. We gotta go. We'll see you another time. This is what, every time it flashed. And again, it was like Morse code in green light. It was like, blah, blah, blah. The light went back into the bulb. The bulb turned off. The craft slowly moved away. And then bang, zoom, and it disappeared over Mount Adams. I cried. People were crying. I can feel it in my heart today, 17 years later. That experience was profound. It made me a nicer person. I was kind of a prick before that. But it made me a nicer, softer person. I feel it still to this day. And I know when that thing went away and I'm crying, I knew in my heart that we are not alone. That was not one of my father's man-made drones. That was an extraterrestrial craft.
Yeah.
And that was the message. That was the message that I believe these were benevolent extraterrestrials, and they loved us, and I still feel that to this day. I can still feel it inside me.
If I could add to that, that's a great question. Why? I mean, we want that answered so badly, and I think we'll get it in the post-disclosure era. But if unless you were able to sit down with an ET and have a long conversation, all you can do is look at what they do and see if there's anything you can take from what they do. And there's two things that they do which are extremely significant. One of them, I think, is the most significant thing we know about these entities, and that is, on multiple occasions, they have turned off our nuclear weapons. They have done it in the Soviet Union. They've even turned them into launch mode a couple of times. This is not trivial. In fact, it's so significant that the Department of Defense, faced with that problem, which started 30 years ago, when Bob Salas came forward, basically said, well, we can't kill them, we can't make them disappear, we can't disgrace them, we'll just ghost them, right? I know they are. Who are these people? And they've gotten away with it because the media kind of went along with it. They've been trying to testify before Congress for 30 years, and they're about to be able to do that, and the world is going to see under oath, they turned our nuclear weapons off. That's a pretty significant thing. And the other thing is this. It's kind of a composite. There have been several 100,000 reports of contact that have been sent to researchers and Whitley Strieber and Hopkins and so forth. Hundreds of thousands, emails, letters. I just need to tell you my story. I can't say it publicly, but I want you to know. Hundreds of thousands. And in many, many of these accounts, the ETs are, as part of the action that takes place on the craft, there's more going on, but they take them aside and they project images into their head of very significant awfulness coming, right? Destruction, whatever, a really negative outcome, possible outcome, not the future, it's not predetermination, all right? And that's notable. But then there's the other thing, which really gets my attention, and that is, and a lot of people don't know this, but the instances where a craft has come down and landed next to a playground filled with kids, it's not just Ruah, it's not the aerial school, and it's not just Westall and Australia. It's happened many times. They land, they get out of the craft. The kids are just really, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Let's go over and see what's going on. They go on over there. The ETs are out of the craft, and they start projecting images into their head of this potential terrible outcome, right? It affected them. Some of them very, very tough. Emily Prim had a tough life because it really bothered her. But they did project those messages in there, so they would know that somehow. And so if they're turning our nukes off, if they're projecting these messages into people that this thing is not going well, this is where it could go, that's a good reason for why they are here. They are here because we've kind of taken it to the limit of what we can do. We've screwed up about as much as we can screw up before things really go down, and apparently they care about that. I believe they do, and if that's true, then wow, we may survive this mess that we've created and live in a world far different than we grew up in. And that's worth going for with everything you have until the very last day of your life, like many of my colleagues have done.
Anyone else want to comment on that, or why do they want to contact us? You're right. Yeah, I think I agree with that. That's just great. Another question here is about the different kinds of species of extraterrestrials. How many are there? And I remember when people were saying, all the researchers saying somewhere in the 70s, but I think it's limitless, really. But does anyone have any opinions on that, or have heard anything about how many?
Serena?
There's at least a dozen different that are active all the time.
There's about a dozen active in this planet dealing with us.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they don't all come from the same place.
Serena, who's read Craig Campobasso's Alien Species Almanac?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I just read it. 82 species in that book with illustrations and descriptions. Now, is that real? Okay. But Craig's a good guy. We know Craig. He's a friend of ours.
Yeah.
I saw him at our HDA holiday party. I said, Craig, between us, how many are there really? He goes, I know of 120 races. I could only put 82 in my book because my publisher cut it off there. So, Serena, the question is dozens, probably.
Yeah, there's so many. There's so many. Because when you think of the planets, and not just the planets, though, multi-dimensions. So it can go on forever with the different kinds of beings that are intelligent. There's a question about our planet being a prison planet. We know we've heard that word. But that means really to me that the ETs don't want, in our words, in our lives, the ETs don't want us to expand our technology and usually our lower consciousness into the universe, because we mess it up. They don't want to mess up another planet. Does anyone have opinions on that? No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bring this up in almost every podcast. By the way, if you have a podcast, I'm happy to do it. Just give me a call. Short notice, not a problem. Okay? Another reason why they could be here, and it's pretty just basic. We're really getting close to understanding. They could be multidimensional. They could be a lot of things, but I'm a kind of a star-to-star guy, and we're getting close to understanding how you can get around that relativity problem so that when you go and come back, everybody hasn't aged 1,000 years. And if that is true, and I'm saying this because they're working on this. There are a number of scientific groups working on this, and I'm seeing some of their postings, and they're saying, we're very close to this. How to get from here to here in a much shorter time. We're close. And guess what? Let's say we built one of those starships maybe 25 years from now, right? We could actually go to Centauri. And we're going to head out there. You think we're not going to go unarmed? Of course not. Right? Star Trek was supposed to be this great, wonderful thing, but they always had weapons and they're always shooting at each other. So we're going to leave the planet with nuclear weapons in our ship and head on out to cause havoc. We're that close. So should it shock you that ETs are maybe factoring that in to the time frame? In other words, we need to deal with you guys because we're not going to let you fly nuclear weapons off into space and show up in our world or some other poor world. And so I think that technological curve may be key to the time frame of why they're escalating it and trying to get this done. We are never going to be allowed to take nuke weapons or antimatter weapons or whatever the hell else we come up with out of our solar system. And if you were in their place, would you let another civilization do that? You would intervene, and so that would not happen. Now, how that intervention will take place, I don't know. But if they don't want us to leave this planet with nuclear weapons in a starship, I can assure you they can stop it. And so that's not a non-trivial aspect of this, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Linda, does anyone else want to speak on that subject? No? Linda, there's a question that is perfect for you. And it has your name at the top here. They're asking you. What is your most profound evidence that you have discovered concerning MJ12?
Being able to physically meet with somebody who worked in MJ12.
Oh, did you want to say anything else about it?
No.
Dan, I wanted to ask Dan Harary. I wanted to ask you about, there's some great documentaries, and you've mentioned one that's fantastic about extraterrestrials and UFOs. But what about the major movies? And I've probably seen all the sci-fi. Me and my husband Douglas, we just watch that every day. But which one do you think is the most true to reality, or maybe could have been based on reality about UFOs?
I have to go with Close Encounters.
Yeah.
I saw it when it came out. I couldn't breathe. I cried at the end. I sat in the chair after people left. I've seen that movie probably 60 times. And my brother, Paul Hynek, his dad was the UFO science officer on that film. Steven Spielberg obviously has some inside track. Like Steve said, he's doing his next film, Disclosure. He did E.T., of course. By the way, who knows that E.T. was based on Steven's mother, Leah Adler? Who knows that?
Really?
Leah Adler, I knew her. She had a restaurant a block from my house in Beverly Hills.
Called the Milky Way.
The Milky Way. My mother and I used to eat with Leah Adler. My Steven was here yesterday with Tom Cruise. And they're talking about how much they love their mothers. Leah Adler was about 4'3". She looked like E.T. She did. I mean, not to be cruel. I knew this woman. My Steven. Her and my mother, you should have seen these two Jewish yentas. Oh, my Steven. He's such a genius, my Steve. Close Encounters, it rings true. It could be a compilation of things from, perhaps it was, Paul, I don't know, maybe stories from Project Blue Book. It just rang true. It felt real. When Richard Dreyfuss is so in awe, and he has this vision. I mean, I had a vision at the deli. He had the vision with the mashed potatoes, right, of this mountain, Devil's Tower, that he had to get there. That movie blew my mind, and I think Steven Spielberg is at he's at the arrow, the apex of wherever the entertainment industry is going to go to help propel the disclosure movement forward. Steven Spielberg's right at the
I think one of the interesting things about Close Encounters is that the movie is that it shows that it's not always the visual sighting that can be the most important or lasting aspect of the experience. I remember when they were making the movie, and my father was nervous because when Hollywood comes calling to do a movie about UFOs, it's usually dystopian and conflict-ridden because you don't get a lot of butts and seats usually in Hollywood by making Village of the Nice happy aliens, right? And sure, there's some kidnapping that goes on in Close Encounters, but it's benevolent. But when they were making, my father was a bit nervous, and he became increasingly comfortable after speaking with Spielberg and gave him the rights for the title. And I remember my mom saying, "Paul, do you want to meet the director of the movie?" And he wasn't that well known at the time. He had done Jaws and Duel and some other movies. I said, "Sure." Then the day came, and it meant I had to schlep all the way out to O'Hare Airport. And I said, "I don't want to go." My mom said, "You said you're going to meet Steven Spielberg. You're going to meet him." So I met him under duress. And years later, I was working in visual effects on a movie called Tintin, and he was the director. And his longtime editor, Michael Kahn, was roaming down the hallway, and we had name badges with our names and pictures, and he sees my name badge, and he says, Hynek, are you related to J. Allen Hynek? I said, "Yes, he's my father." And he said, "Oh, he was a wonderful technical advisor." And I'm thinking, in what world does the technical advisor of a movie meet the editor? It's like the opposite end of the spectrum. And this is a Friday afternoon, and he said, "Does Steven know that you're here?" I said, I really don't know if he knows about my whereabouts. So Monday morning comes along, and I hear Paul Hynek to the set. So I go to the set, and there's Steven and his longtime producer, Kathy Kennedy. And I sat and talked with him for an hour and a half, and it was just wonderful. And the way, if you search Spielberg and Hynek, you can find a YouTube video of Steven talking about my father, and they were so kind. And Kathy Kennedy, who's now in charge of Star Wars, said it was the movie Close Encounters that got her interested in doing movies. And they also told me they worked for a year to do a movie about Kelly Hopkinsville.
Right.
And so while we were talking, I said, hey, can I bring my brother Joel to the set later? And they said, sure. So later that afternoon, we met again. My brother Joel won an Oscar for What Dreams May Come. Wonderful. It's a beautiful movie. Yeah, it is, and the art design is beautiful, and it's a wonderful movie. And my brother was working on The Matrix, and he created the effects for The Matrix, and he should have won the Oscar for that. That's a long story. But so I brought Joel to the stage, and we're talking with Stephen and Kathy again, and Joel said, you know, so when he won the Oscar, he was sort of the leader of the group, and he's a shy engineer, and he's speaking in front of what, like 2 billion people. And he told Stephen that when he went up on the stage and he's giving his acceptance remarks, he was so nervous until he looked down and he saw Stephen smiling at him. And that really centered him in that moment. And so he said, Stephen, did you know that I was J. Allen Hynek's son? And Stephen looks at him and he says, of course I did, Joel. So just a little bit of behind the scenes.
Let me add on this. I'm glad this has come up. This is so significant because we are in LA. Hollywood's just north of us. Remember, E.T., Close Encounters. Okay, we know those, all right? But you may have forgotten, Steven Spielberg produced a 20-hour series called Taken that ran here, it ran everywhere. You don't see it now. It was about contact, it was about abduction, but it was also about the truth embargo or the cover-up. 20 hours, all right? Not too long ago, just a year and a half ago, finally, he did the first nonfiction. He produced the first nonfiction engagement of this issue. It was called Encounters. So you see where he's going, all right? And now he has a movie in the works called 2000. And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it Spielberg that showed the movie at the White House with Reagan, and afterwards Reagan told him? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
It's E.T. Steven Spielberg's connection to this is actually almost monumental. What he has done, the way he's educated, and the tact he has taken is highly significant. At any time, he could very easily step into this and make extraordinary things happen. If there's one person in the world I want to sit down with and talk to, have lunch, it would be him. But it's easy to forget that if you look at the whole way that he has dealt with this issue for so long, it's been incredibly important to how this thing has evolved, and he's chosen his path. He may know there's ETs here, but he's not prepared to go there, and I don't object at all. But he's not done. And I obviously, can you wait to see this movie, Disclosure? It's going to be fantastic. So Spielberg needs to get more credit, not just for how good a filmmaker he is, but how he has assisted the whole process of leading us to a confirmation on this event.
I have a quick Spielberg little tale to tag all this stuff together. I met Steven Spielberg in 2010 at Universal Studios. I'm a publicist. Universal Studios, there was a press conference there. It was Steven Spielberg and Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. And there was all the press in the world and a million publicists, including me. All the press in the world wanted Arnold, Governor, Arnold, Governor, red carpet, screaming for Arnold. Steven Spielberg is standing alone in a shadow by himself. I'm here. I go, holy God, there's Steven Spielberg. What do you say? Jaws was scary. Schindler's List is a masterpiece. What do you say he's never heard before? What do you say? So I walk up to him. I go, Steven, yes, I'm shaking his hand. My name is Dan. Now, keep in mind, his mother's restaurant was a block from my house, right? Kosher dairy restaurant. Steven, I'm Dan. Your mother makes the best blintzes I've ever had in my life. And Steven goes, oh my God, you're right. My mother does make the best blintzes. And Steven and I became friends. I spent the whole day with him. I got my picture with him. We bonded over his mother's blintzes. So.
Dan used to be a stand-up comedian, and he's still got it.
Yeah, it's been a while.
He does.
Everyone's asking, well, not everyone, but most people want to know, what for everyone here, what are your thoughts or any intelligence that you've got on the New Jersey drones? We call them New Jersey, but I know there are other places too. Globally, drones and orbs that have been appearing lately. Does anyone have some information on them?
Well, I got what I think was at least a serious tip, that it does involve a nuclear weapon that was in the Ukraine. This is what I've been told. And it disappeared. And that we have been looking for it through frequencies. And those frequencies have involved putting up drones. And so the whole thing is a confusion of many layers going back to a nuclear missile is missing that we provided Ukraine. And I think it is a serious story.
Oh, and that would make sense because they're looking in other parts of the world too, are they?
You want to do it?
Well, I mean, what is interacting with Ukraine? We don't know. But I'm just telling you that I've gotten that from a pretty serious source about why there have been so many drones for a period of time on the East Coast. They wanted to make sure that they could pick up, if they could pick up the frequencies. They may not be able to, which then makes it dicier, but if they can, then they don't want a nuclear missile going off on the East Coast of the United States.
No, absolutely not. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything secret information? A question I've asked before about the beneficial science, the ET science that is helpful to the planet. The ETs have all kinds of things that we don't have that could help us on this planet with food and energy and all that. So what is the latest on that? When we get disclosure, will we also have a science that helps people, and not just for military? What about that, Danny? Do you want to make a remark? You've said some interesting things about that before.
Well, no, it's not clear. There are things that haven't come into the purview of the stuff that I've been doing.
Oh, okay. There was something from the past that you said, and I can't remember it now, and I really wanted to remember, about that they were keeping secret, something that could help us, in maybe growing food or other things on this planet. And because I've heard that from someone.
I've talked about this a little bit. If you want to just get a simple little example, there's all kinds of possibilities. Anti-gravitic drive, all right? If we have craft that are anti-gravitic that can maneuver like those craft, that's pretty cool, right? Okay, so what could we do with that? What could we do with that could be really helpful to us? Well, here's something really simple. We have a problem that's not talked about much. We are accumulating huge amounts of spent nuclear stuff. We're storing it underground. We're storing it in barrels. It's all over the place. It's a major problem you don't hear much about, and we're continuing to do it, and we can't get rid of it. They're trying to invent a bacteria that can eat it. I'm not optimistic about that. Okay? And so it's just a huge problem. But if you have anti-gravitic drive, which I believe we do, it's not a problem at all. Because you can build a basic craft that can hold a nice container. You fill the container up with the nuclear stuff we got to get rid of. You take it up into orbit, much easier than you can now. You got a rocket on it, and you point it at the sun. You shoot it into the sun. And so using anti-gravitic technology, we can dump all of our nuclear waste into the sun, which can handle it very well. Problem solved.
I got good news for you, Steve.
Yes?
Next-gen molten salt nuclear reactors can use spent nuclear radioactive waste, which has a lot of energy potential still in it, as fuel, and reduce the half-life from thousands of years to hundreds of years, and the mass by about 95%.
Wow.
So that's actually, and it's Homer Simpson safe. These nuclear plants cannot melt down. So it's actually the most energy or environmentally friendly technology we have. To the question about will they give us technology, and it's a double-edged sword. The Wright brothers were convinced that aviation would lead to the end of warfare because you could see what the enemies are doing.
Oh, there's that, yeah.
They didn't think about us dropping things on the enemy. So all technologies are agnostic. They can be used for good and bad. And if you are another civilization from another planet or another dimension, you're going to think twice about what will we do with that technology. Will we use it for good and or bad? Will governments hog control of that? you'd have to be very gentle with how you divulge information or give technology to us, because we have a history of not being altogether responsible with our toys.
Well, and I could say that we've had discussions about this as a team of these various things, and you can even just go something as simple as just learning how to better create superconductors. And you say, well, what does that do? Well, that transfers energy without any loss, and just bringing it down to everyday life. Right now, to do that takes a lot of energy. You have to cool it, and there's a lot that goes into that. But we look at the race that we have right now with AI and the amount of data centers that have to be built to handle that. I've done some business deals with the such, and these data centers, one data center can take 300 megawatts of electricity to run it. I mean, that's more than the Hoover Dam produces, I believe. And so we're talking about huge amounts, and most of that energy is spent cooling the servers. So you get a superconductor, you get the technology that helps us better understand even just something as simple as a transfer of energy, and you right there erase a huge amount of energy that we're trying to produce to advance our technology. So it can be something as simple as just understanding one little tiny key piece, and it could be, I mean, at the end of the day, in your pocketbook, that could mean much cheaper energy rates and being able to live, and that's just a tiny little example.
Oh, that's good. I like to think of things like that. There's a question here for everyone. Are there any mainstream physicists working on other dimensional interaction? That's a really good question. Does anyone know? No, we don't know that.
Can I just say, my father was a physicist, and I wish he was alive today to see what's going on.
Yes.
And I also wish I could ask him what he did for a living, because I know he was involved with reverse engineering. But he was my father was a physicist.
Well, can I add something that has recently been reported? This was December 6th, so a while ago. But it's from the UK Daily Mail. Quote, secret Pentagon study hints at reincarnation being real after finding consciousness never dies. And this is an article that goes into and hooks up with what I was talking about earlier, the other dimensions. And this is, from my point of view, of people that are coming to me now in increasing numbers with some background of having worked either on, around, underground at S4 or UFOs, that one of the biggest keys to everything is going to be that the tall whites, the Nordics, the various very sophisticated ETs, they move by being able to hop dimensions and use frequencies. And that in that physics, the science of propulsion of advanced technologies, is also a keyhole looking into, and I'm just going to say this not to offend anyone, that souls are a key to the greatest interest of some of the extraterrestrials, and that in their interest and study of the soul plasma of not only us, but a lot of beings, you are automatically in the area of at least 12-dimensional frequencies. And if we are in the third, at least it's a name we've given it, that frequency is different from 2 and 4 and 5. The non-humans use other dimensional frequencies for everything they do to move. And we're totally disconnected from that on this planet. So will the next big revelation be that our souls are extremely real and are related to this power of reincarnation?